the Finance Committee of the Board of Aldermen. I will read the notice. Aldermanic notice New Haven. The Finance Committee will hold a public hearing on Monday, July 11, 2022 at 6:00 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chambers, 165 Church Street, New Haven, to hear the following. Item 1, LM 2021-0152. Order of the Board of Alders authorizing the Mayor of the City of New Haven to apply for and accept federal stimulus funding in a manner consistent with and pursuant to the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Item number 2, LM 2021-0644. From Sisters in Diaspora Collective, submitting a proposal for the use of ARP COVID-19 relief funds to reduce housing inequity in the city. These items are filed with the city clerk and may be inspected in room 202, 200 Orange Street, New Haven. Per order, the Honorable Adam Marchand, Chair, attest Michael Smart, City Clerk. If you need a disability-related accommodation, please call 3 business days in advance, 946-7651 voice or 946-8582 TTY. In accordance with the City of New Haven COVID-19 requirements, the wearing of masks is optional. Although the chair of the committee very much encourages people to keep those masks on. Members of the public may send comments to public testimony at newhavenct.gov. We will now have announced introductions of our committee members, starting to my right.
Alder DeColo, Ward 18.
Alder Frank Douglas, Ward 2.
Alder Adam Marchand, Ward 25.
Anna Kessler, Ward 10.
Saisha Walker-Myers, Ward 23.
Thank you, colleagues, for being here. We expect more of our colleagues on the committee to arrive shortly, but there's no reason not to get started. Let me just say a couple of quick things. These 2 items are related. They're on the same topic. They're on the question of what to do with the $53 million of Arpa funds. That is this particular allocation. The mayor has his proposal, which we heard, and which the staff described in some length in our June finance meeting. And then there's a proposal from the Sisters in Diaspora Collective, which they, representatives of that organization gave a very detailed presentation in our meeting in June. So we're not going to hear presentations from the makers of those 2 items, since those presentations have been given. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to go straight into the public testimony to hear from you all, members of the public, your views of what should be done with this federal money that has come to the city through the American Rescue Plan Act, $53 million allocation. And our procedure is we're going to start with the folks who are listed on the sign-in sheet. Mr. Lucas, our Director of Legislative Services, will get 1 sheet up here for us to view. There are more sheets there for folks who arrive later, and they can sign up to testify when they want to, when they get here. And so we will go in the order of how people signed in. We anticipate a good number of people testifying this evening. So we are going to be consistent with our procedure, which is to ask people to stay within 3 minutes, right? 3 minutes is what we'll be asking people to stay within. And either myself or our Vice Chair, Alder Hurt, when he gets here, will be helping folks to know when those 3 minutes are coming up. Sometimes folks like to submit longer remarks for us to have on the record and to consider, and we welcome that. You may submit testimony at any time on this item up till, like the day before we vote on it. And you can do that by emailing those comments to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov. So if you come up here this evening and you give your remarks and you feel like, oh gosh, I forgot something I wanted to add, or I didn't get into all the details that I wanted to, it's not too late. You can always email us additional comments or elaborate comments by sending them to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov. Finally, before we begin the public testimony, let me say two more things. One, there is some time sensitivity to some of the proposed allocations in the mayor's proposal, and to make it so that we can vote on the package this summer and not wait till September, I will be asking the board to discharge this item from this committee at the board's next meeting in early August. So what does that mean? It means that we're not going to deliberate tonight. We're not going to make amendments tonight. We will not take action on item number one, but instead we will ask the full board to discharge it at the first meeting in August, so that then the board can discuss it, deliberate, possibly amend it, and vote on it then. And at some point before the evening is over, I'll look up the date for when that meeting is in August and announce it to you all so that you can come back.
August 1st.
August 1st. Thank you, Alder DeCola. So that will be when the item is discharged, moved, and voted on by the full board. Item number two, the proposal from Sisters in Diaspora Collective. We will take action on that tonight. That is a read and file item. They've made their presentation, they're having their say, and what they've said may have some influence in how we deal with item number one, the actual order. But their presentation has been given, so it's a read and file. And we'll be recommending that the full board read and file that material. So before we start calling forward folks to testify, let me recognize Alder Jeanette Morrison from Ward 22, member of the committee, who's joined us. Thank you. Also want to recognize Alder Sarah Miller from Ward 14, who's in the gallery. We thank you for being here this evening. And so without further ado, we will now move. Oh, I remember now what my last announcement is. It's about these microphones. It's really important to use the microphone so that everybody in the chambers can hear. And so if you put it down on the table, suddenly people can't hear a thing you say. Can you hear me? No, because you need to hold it right to your mouth. And I know it's awkward. Sometimes you're like reading the comments on the phone, holding the microphone to your face, you want to put it down, but then people can't hear you. So if you want, well, we're going to require you to use the microphone so that everybody can hear, so that it can be recorded properly and be part of the public record. And do not push the button on these little microphones because it will turn off the microphone. Okay? And when folks come forward to testify, we will ask them to give their name and address to the record. So, having made all those announcements, we will now proceed with the public hearing on these items, which are in regards to the $53 million allocation of ARPA funds, starting with Carlotta Clark. And after Carlotta Clark has finished, please come forward. It'll be Javier Gonzalez after Ms. Clark.
Is this the microphone?
Yes, please sit down. When you're all seated, you can grab the microphone and give us your name and address for it.
My name is Carlotta Clark. I'm at 264 New Wall Street, New Haven, Connecticut, 06511.
Thank you.
So I'm testifying this evening, and thank you for having me, by the way, for a program that we want in New Holtville for community youth development. We project 24 weeks of classes.
Ms. Clark, we have to hold it closer to you.
24 weeks of classes to develop the kids ages 5 to 13 to become community leaders. There's a lot written here, and I heard you say that we can actually submit it in the public testimony. I'm not gonna go through all of this, but we would like to educate our children in New Holtville, and we have a budget here roughly of about $200,000. So I will put this on the website and tell you exactly what we're requesting this money for. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. I will just note for the record that we are in receipt of an email from Ms. Kate Harris on behalf of Inspired Communities Incorporated. She provided a document that's a couple pages long.
Yeah.
Actually several pages long, and also a spreadsheet with some budget figures. So you're referring to that.
Yes,
And so your request is that this board allocate some of these ARPA funds to fund the project that you all are proposing
yes.
to support the youth.
Yes.
Okay,
Um,
thank you very much.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Any questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much, ma'am, for your testimony. Jason Gonzalez is next. After Jason Gonzalez, we have Antoinette from Lawrence Street. Hence. Okay. Hughes. Thank you. So, the name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jason Gonzalez. I live in 94 Harlow Street, CO6519. I was able to leave and I hope to make my life with my husband. My husband and I have a woman given license in the city that is paying on opportunities. We have surveyed our neighborhoods and now out on the doors to fight for better job opportunities for the neighborhood residents. I live in the Hill. I know that my neighborhood needs more opportunities for jobs, housing, and community. My husband and I work hard. We sold the 4 houses in the neighborhood. I work at IKEA. My husband is a member of Local 35. Even though we both have jobs, it has been hard to find affordable housing. Eventually, we would like to buy a house in the city, but it would be impossible with such high housing prices. I'm scared that these prices will continue to increase. It will be challenging for us to buy a home. Still, we don't want to be Cleveland. That's why we're fighting so hard to get a city that has opportunities for everyone. I'm glad to see that the American Rescue Plan program has down payment assistance and rental assistance. I'm excited that this will allow our city to purchase property and turn it into a more house and that through programs like the UNP. These programs make it hopeful that I have a blue idea like that. As a resident of the Hill, I know that we need more youth opportunities. I live just box control where there's a supporting community space that needs more support and funding. I'm glad that the city is getting more improvements now with the support of all of our leaders, but there's more to be done. Too many youths in New Haven don't have enough opportunities. We need new centers and programs in place like Control Which Square. We need more summer camp spots after school support. New job opportunities are also supported in neighborhoods like mine. As a fellow wife for the New Haven, I'm excited to also contribute to building a city where all families have stability and opportunity. I'm excited to see how revenue from this American Rescue Plan will continue to move forward.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Ms. Antoinette is next. After her will be Dolores Colon, who I do not see, but perhaps she will arrive. You can take it off with you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, I'm a resident of Haven for 48 years. I'm a mother of 4. I live at 50 Lawrence Street in Haven. My concern that I have today, just I would like to brief on this 3, is the conditions of downtown Haven, of the homeless people that's there. We were talking about revenue, we're going to talk about the revenue as far as where the money's going to go. I feel as though a shelter should be built for the homeless that's on the streets to clean up in Haven first and foremost, before we spread funding out to anyone else. There needs to be a start there first, and then afterwards, what's left. But in order to move forward, we need to clean up what we have that's wrong first. My second thing is the subsidy and the housing units, like thereof that we have for low income, and the subsidy. I've spoken before about subsidy and how there was a time where I lived in subsidized housing, and where I was working with jobs, they were both on my rent, and the more money I made, the more they charged for me to live there. So I was unable to save money, so to speak. So if we can get more units where the subsidies pretty much cut out, so that the next generation can come about and move in these new units. If I'm saving, that means I can get a house, and the next generation can come in and move into the subsidy and start saving, and it can go on so forth and so forth. And after school programs, still after school programs for kids. I'm a mother of 4, 24, 21, 19 and 13, that's me. But my son is home now, and I did miss the mark on the after school program when I was working. But we need more counseling jobs, youth education. That's why I started out with after school programs. I was able to get a job at 14 and make good money, mama, and things of that nature. So I would like to see a cleaning up of New Haven, downtown Haven. I'm a little embarrassed to bring friends, people out of town, downtown Haven. We all see what's going on. It's obvious. The homeless people that's down there, they need help. And I think a lot of this money, or most should go towards cleaning up downtown Haven first. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony this evening. Former Alder Dolores Colon, we acknowledge your presence and you're next on the list. I would also like to recognize former Alder Jill Moss, who is with us as well.
Thank you for having this hearing again. I am a person who served on the task force for affordable housing during my last term here, and it still is a big issue in our town, and everywhere you turn around, especially in Ward 6, there is more and more construction, and they are for luxury apartments. It seems to me that the downtown and the surrounding area of downtown, maybe possibly the East Rock area, and I don't know about Westville, I haven't seen large buildings being constructed there. But it seems like if, with all the construction, we're trying to do off-site New York City here, Lower East, not Lower East Side, excuse me, luxury East Side, because the rents there are ridiculous. If you want to get a small luxury, a small studio apartment, it is without the means of people to get it. An average person cannot afford to have $1,200 for 600 square foot, if it is that much, unit of an efficiency apartment. So the struggle still continues. The need is great. I believe that during the task force, we found that there were 28,000 families, and that included single veterans, female, male, that also were in need of housing at affordable prices. So I'm here to ask that we spend some of this windfall from the federal government for affordable housing and to take care of New Haven people. And attached to this is the fact that many, many people that are investing in these new builds are not even from New Haven. And they do it as an investment without caring about the impact that it has on the residents of New Haven or the quality of life here. Second thing is that even though there's construction going on, there's old construction that's still good housing, is being bought by people from outside of our city and not being maintained, not being properly managed. I know that in certain areas of the Hill, there were tragedies caused because of overcrowding, like in attics that were illegal areas to live in. And we've had a lot of a one-family house that was full of undocumented people in the attic and the basement, and nothing good comes of that. So this is the thing, housing. We need affordable housing that's decent and affordable. Thank you.
Former Alder Colon, would you mind telling us your name and address?
Oh, I thought you said it for me. You said it for me when you called me up.
I said your name, but not your address.
I live at 34 Salem Street, New Haven, Connecticut. Thank you.
So much.
Sorry about that. Shame on me.
No shame at all. It's understandable. Thank you, former Alder Colon. Rebecca Corbett is next on the queue, followed by Elias Estabrook.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. Is this working?
Don't push the button.
Just hold it, just hold it. It'll be fine.
My name is Rebecca Corbett, and I live at 616 Winthrop Avenue in New Haven. I am here today as an affordable housing commissioner, a member of the New Haven Rising, and a recently retired member of Local 34. The proposed American Rescue Plan program that focuses on affordable housing will make important differences in residents' lives, and I urge the board to allocate more resources to them. As a mother and a longtime New Haven resident, I know how important affordable housing is to families. When my sons were young, we were evicted from our apartment, became homeless, and were forced to live in motel rooms. To this day, I have a hard time staying in motel rooms due to the trauma of being homeless. I want people to understand that when good jobs are scarce and housing is as expensive as it is, families are just one paycheck away from being in our position. Increases in prices are making it even more challenging for people to stay in their homes. Our life changed when I became part of the New Haven Residents Training Program funded by Local 34. I was hired at Yale and able to provide a home for my children. Eventually, as a single working mother, I was able to buy a house of my own. Stories like mine shouldn't be rare. We need more residents in New Haven to have these opportunities. Programs like our home program will create housing opportunities for New Haven residents by providing down payment assistance. It will also support renters who need to find affordable housing. These types of programs will help people who are faced with difficult decisions like I was when I became homeless. I also encourage that the city will have more resources to expand the number of affordable housing units in our city. Simply put, there are not enough affordable units in our city to meet the demand. The American Rescue Plan will not solve all of our city's problems with affordable housing, but it is an important piece of the affordable housing agenda that the city is pursuing. If these programs receive more funding, they will give many families better housing options. This will save families from trauma and stress that no one should ever have to experience.
Thank you, Ms. Corbett. Before you leave, any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For coming back. Elias Estabrook is next, followed by Alejandra Salazar Gonzalez. And while Mr. Estabrook is coming forward, let me just tell those of you who just arrived that if you wish to testify, there is a sign-up sheet at a table near the door. Feel free to sign up if you wish to testify. If you don't wish to testify, then you don't need to sign up. Mr. Estabrook.
Good evening. Elias Estabrook, 380 Winthrop Avenue, New Haven. I'm a renter right now, but aspiring to buy a home one day in New Haven. I remember at April's public hearing before this committee, you heard from many New Haven Rising members about the results of a survey we conducted with hundreds of our neighbors and community members. I also surveyed dozens of New Haven residents, primarily in Dixwell and Newhallville. In these surveys, I heard from most residents that affordable housing should be a priority. And I think they are right about the immense scale of the housing challenge we face. A significant number of homeowners and renters are cost burdened. More than half of the renters in New Haven spend over 30% of their income on housing. More than half. While housing costs continue to rise through the pandemic, residents' real wages have not kept up. So to afford the rent for an average 2-bedroom unit in our region, a household in Greater New Haven would have to make over $57,000 per year, or over $27 an hour in a full-time job. And we know the majority of New Haven households make less money than this. So I think to meet this housing challenge, the city needs to allocate more money towards the housing category of the proposal. I used to live near the new homeowner-occupied multifamily homes at Thompson Street and Winchester Avenue for a few years. And I think these are an example of the sort of transformation we need for vacant lots and dilapidated houses. And we need to see more of that. I think the housing and money in this proposal could fund more development projects like this. A recent study found that New Haven would need more than 8,000 additional units to meet the needs of households making less than 50% of the area median income, or less than $40,000 per year. So these thousands of households are burdened with rents that they cannot really afford. And I think that housing programs in this proposal, such as building new affordable units or assisting them with their current rent, could be helpful. I also think funding the land bank with at least $4 million, as you have in the mayor's proposal, is critical. Many of us regularly see the headlines in the New Haven Independent again and again about the millions of dollars in property that large corporate landlords are buying up.
30 seconds.
And I've heard from frustrated residents about this too, that these companies are taking over New Haven without enough consideration for safe, affordable housing. So I think we need this land bank to work in the interest of low and moderate income residents who want to buy a home or want to rent affordably. So I think it's a good start, and that further revenue should continue to support this important work. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Estabrook. Any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you. And I noticed you have some sheets of paper. If you come up with hard copies of your testimony, and you're able to give a copy to our staff, Lucas, that is very helpful for our files. So next will be Alejandra Salazar Gonzalez, followed by Meryl Eaton, I think. And we'll be ready to move and adjust for it.
Should I move this closer?
Yes, you'll have to actually hold it right up to you.
Okay, sounds good. So my name is Alejandra Salazar Gonzalez, and I live on 340 Orange Street. I work at LEAP and I'm a member of New Haven Rising, and I appreciate the opportunity to testify in support of allocating more Arpa funds towards opportunities for youth and affordable housing. I'm advocating for increased Arpa funds for these two areas of critical need because, one, this is what New Haven residents are asking for based on New Haven Rising's conversations in the community. And two, housing and youth are essential to the longevity of a city. Increased investments and opportunities for youth are critical right now. Youth unemployment is at all-time highs. The Connecticut Department of Labor reported last year that the unemployment rate for youth of color was a staggering 50%, leaving young people and their families in financial distress. Children are suffering as well. The New Haven Register reported just last month that more than half of New Haven's youngest students are not reading at grade level. Arpa funds could go a long way in providing young people the support that they need and deserve. We need to invest more in meaningful youth opportunities, such as the Youth at Work program, the Youth Violence Prevention Initiative, and New Haven summer camps. Doing so provides young people with valuable learning opportunities and also gives them the chance to give back to the city in meaningful ways. By supporting youth, we are not only directly supporting the well-being of young people, we are supporting their families and the entire city of New Haven. Furthermore, New Haven is in a housing crisis. The pandemic made this problem much worse, and many places that assist with access to affordable housing are at capacity. Elm City Communities reported a wait list of 17,000 people in need of rent subsidies just this past spring, and affordable housing units have years-long wait lists. Rent increases continue to push more and more people out of the city or discourage working people from moving here. The Connecticut Fair Housing Center reported that New Haven County saw a rise in the average rent by more than $300 per month over the last 18 months alone. That is a significant sum of money. As someone who recently moved back to New Haven, the process of finding housing was discouraging and made me reconsider moving back at all. A good friend of mine that loves New Haven is leaving because they can't afford to rent here anymore. We are losing people who love the city and contribute to the city in so many ways.
30 seconds.
Please consider investing more money into making this city available to all. Investing in affordable housing is the way to honor the people of New Haven and their love for the city. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Any questions from committee members? Seeing none. Thank you. Next on our list is, I think it's Meryl Eaton, followed by Paul Seltzer. And I'd like to recognize Alder Ron Kirk from the third ward, who is vice chair of the committee. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. My name is Meryl Eaton. I live at 14 Ash Drive in Hampton. I have a house and a husband in Hampton, but my heart and my commitment is to New Haven, and in particular to the New Hopewell and Hill neighborhoods. For the last 18 years, I've worked as the Director of Advocacy and Education for Christian Community Action, a nonprofit led by Reverend Benita Gross that provides direct services to families living in poverty and behavior. In particular, I work with Mothers and Others for Justice, who have found the Room for All Coalition, many of whom members are here tonight. My work is not just a job to me, but it's a passion and a calling. I'm able to hear firsthand the experiences of people who are trying to achieve or maintain stability for their families. And I also participate in local, state, and federal policy matters, giving me both a bird's eye and a worm's eye view of the challenges of people living in disadvantaged neighborhoods and cities. Thank you for the hard work that you are doing in trying to determine how to spend your ARPA money. There are many, many needs, and having attended the last few meetings of this committee, it is not an enviable task to make these decisions. Many of you might remember Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In short, Maslow said that it is hard to self-actualize if your basic needs, like housing, are not taken care of. He also believed that not having these needs taken care of would impact one's future mental health. And somebody already said that sitting in this chair tonight. New Haven has a housing crisis. More than 50% of city residents report needing to spend more than 50% of their income on housing. This is happening to teachers, it's happening to nurses, it's happening to Yale employees, but it impacts the poor most severely.
1 minute.
If you're working full-time, a minimum wage job, bringing home less than $2,000 in salary, and you need to spend $1,000 on rent, and please tell me where to find that. You will need to make terrible choices every day about how to pay for utilities, food, transportation, other basic necessities. A day rarely goes by when I don't talk to somebody who's looking for housing. People that have a housing voucher and are living in motels because there's no available housing. People whose only option is to move into a subpar apartment owned by a mega landlord. There's nowhere to go. This committee must invest at least $50 million of ARPA money into increasing the inventory of safe, affordable housing in New Haven. It will not be enough, but it is a start. Thank you for all you do.
Any questions from members of the committee? Thank you.
Next person on our list is Paul Seltzer. And after him, Akia Tamaruha.
My name is Paul Seltzer.
Mr. Seltzer, make sure you grab that microphone.
Oh.
And put it right next to your mask. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. My name is Paul Seltzer, and I live at 95 Lion Street in New Haven. I'm a graduate teacher in the history department at Yale, and also one of the co-presidents of Local 33, the campaign to win a union for grad workers at Yale. My wife and I have lived in 2 apartments in Ward 8 since moving to New Haven in 2017. First on William Street and now on Lion Street, where we've lived since 2019. We love this little section of Worcester Square. Before moving to New Haven, we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Louisville, Kentucky. We figured that housing costs would be higher in New Haven, but I was shocked to find that for a similarly priced 1-bedroom apartment, we were paying more than double what our rent was in Louisville. I'm grateful that because of the union salary and benefits from my wife's position at Yale, we've been able to afford our rent as well as the move to our current apartment. But our rent goes up every time we renew our lease. A few blocks away from us, huge new apartment complexes are being constructed. But I have to wonder, will current New Haveners even be able to afford to live in any of this new housing? What effect will being surrounded by new luxury apartments have on my and my wife's rent? Will we be able to stay in New Haven when we want to start a family? If I, a graduate worker at Yale, am getting more and more worried about the rising cost of housing in New Haven, I can only imagine what it's like for others in this city who are struggling to get by. The current proposal for allocating ARPA funds to affordable housing is a start in the right direction, but I urge the board to provide as much money for affordable housing as possible. Programs like the I'm Home programs like the I'm Home Initiative and the Lands Bank will create more options for long-term New Haven residents who want to stay in our city. These programs are important steps in the board's broader affordable housing agenda for fixing the crisis of affordable housing that so many are experiencing in New Haven. Thank you.
Questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Akil? And after Akil is from Sarah Giovanniello.
Hi, I'm Akil and I live at 367 Elm Street. I'm an undergraduate at Yale and I'm a member of Students Unite now. I'm here to testify about the importance of affordable housing. My father and his family grew up in Hong Kong with housing insecurity, the stress that makes it really difficult to deal with the many challenges that come with being poor, including accessing educational opportunities, getting enough and well, and having to raise many funds. I know if that had still been the case when I grew up, I likely would not have been able to get to study at Yale or be here today. I've been practicing with New Haven Rising this summer, talking to people every week on the doors, and it's clear that this is a priority in the community as well. Affordable housing is essential, and given that my university is a major contributor to the lack of housing in the city, I'm here to encourage you to vote today to allocate these funds to affordable housing.
Thank you. Questions from committee?
Sarah, after Sarah, Barbara Vereen.
Hi, is it working? Okay. Hi, my name is Sarah Giovanniello and I live at 33 Pleasant Avenue in Ward 29. On New Year's Eve, my neighbors and I found signs on our doors saying that our apartment complex had been sold from a local couple who lived in Bethany to the mega landlord Ocean Management. That was the only communication we received from them for months. We found out in the newspaper that the landlord was planning on renovating our units to be higher end with washer dryers and dishwashers. And as our leases expired, we still didn't hear anything from the property manager. Finally, one of our neighbors was able to get a year-long lease for an unrenovated apartment with a rent increase of 30%, an increase none of us can afford. For that reason, we began organizing New Haven's second tenant union. Our community at the Elizabeth Apartments has been incredibly stable. Several residents have lived there for 12, 20, even 30 years. We are a diverse group of people with good middle-class jobs. Among us are teachers, employees of Yale University and Yale New Haven Hospital. And we also have several retirees on fixed incomes. Most of us do not qualify for Section 8. But as rents rise, driven by the corporations that own many of the housing units in the city, we are finding ourselves in an impossible position. We can't afford to stay and pay a 30% increase, and we can't afford to move. That's why we've decided to come together, organize, and negotiate to be able to stay. We are in a housing affordability crisis in this city, and the city government needs to address that crisis immediately. The Arpa funds should absolutely be used to help make housing affordable and to provide rental assistance to more people in our city. The I'm Home Initiative and the Land Bank will help people buy affordable homes, and it will help renters find places to live and stay in their current homes. A historic investment in these programs is a major step forward for the city's affordable housing agenda. However, this crisis is too significant to be tackled by any individual policy.
1 minute.
We also need to hold landlords accountable to providing affordable and safe housing. Next week, the Board of Alders will hear proposed legislation that will empower the Fair Rent Commission to formally recognize tenant unions. These policies are part of a broader affordable housing agenda that includes initiatives such as ADUs, inclusive zoning, and setting up a registry that will give the city the ability to hold corporate landlords accountable. If we want to give our residents a chance to stay in our city, we all need to think of even more creative ways to solve this crisis. But ARPA is a good step in the right direction, and it will be even better with more resources and policies allocated to affordable housing. Thank you.
Questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you. Thank you.
Arpa Vereen. Dr. Barbara Will Benjamin.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Barbara Vereen. I live at 80 Pond Street in New Haven. The last time I was here, I testified before the Finance Committee about going to Atlanta and knocking on a ton of doors to make these funds possible. Today, I'm here to talk about the hundreds of people I saw in Atlanta living in their city parks. I didn't think that, I was like, wow, that don't happen where I live at. But guess what? I was canvassing in my neighborhood, and my neighbor said, one of my neighbors said, come out here on Dixon Avenue at 12 o'clock at night and sit and see what we see every single night. People walking up and down Dixon Avenue, turning down West Ivy Street and going to the baseball field and to the Cherry Ann Street Park to have camp and to be staying and living in the parks. I think that we have to do something, and I hope that these ARPA funds are used to deal with our homeless population of people that live in our communities. We have a large number of homeless people in our community. We have a growing number of people who are living in their cars with their children because they are being priced out of their apartments in New Orleans. We have to, we are in an affordable housing crisis. I urge the Board of Alders to allocate more money for homeless services and to support affordable housing. When we host a university like Yale, we should not have many residents. We shouldn't have residents living in their cars and struggling with housing. We have to do better. Thank you. Thank you.
Will Kim Harris.
Good evening. Will Peterman, 75 Warren Street. I run housing policy for the Housing Authority, although I hear my personal message. There's a lot worth supporting in the city's American Rescue Plan proposal. Every suggestion is worthy of funding from new youth programming and easier access to early childhood education to increase support for small business and reducing the city's carbon footprint. We need to do more in New Haven to support our young ones, to support small business, to reduce the impact of climate change and pollutants on our residents. But the fundamental problem with these proposals is how small their potential impact will be. While our city has received potentially transformative funds, the funding proposed here and in prior rounds of funding etches the status quo into stone. Take housing as an example. This proposal allocates $10 million for 8 different potential uses within 3 different categories just within housing, plus another $4 million for a neighborhood land bank. The ideas outlined in the proposal are drastic needs. We need support for neighborhood development. We need improvement in the residential licensing program. In new development affordable housing, we need additional rental support for the thousands of people who are on the wait list at Elk City communities. But $10 million can't sufficiently fund these programs. $10 million is a drop in the bucket compared to the need, and the same is true for every category of investment that the city has laid out. The question that I hope the board will ask itself is, in 10 years, how will we see the impact of these investments? Will we be able to look around our city and see how an investment now has helped us grow and thrive? Or will we look around wondering where all the money went? I'm very concerned that this proposal condemns us to the latter, to a nice couple of years of better funded social services that are cut when the money runs out. We should be making the kind of investments that will help our city grow with an eye towards long-term impact, leveraging this money for increased growth. How much new mixed income social housing could we build or subsidize with a significant amount of this money? How many new jobs could we create with seed investment and infrastructure improvement? How many people's lives in the city and the state could be transformed if we committed significant portions of this $53 million to a big vision for what New Haven can be? I want to emphasize that the policies proposed in the city's plan are deeply worthy of investment. There is too much need in New Haven for any idea to be unworthy or unhelpful. But the question we need to ask ourselves is not whether an investment is needed. The question we need to ask ourselves is whether an investment is transformative. I hope the board will pause the appropriation of this money and allow the city to reevaluate it. There is too much to lose from piecemeal investment.
questions from committee members? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kim Harris, after Kim, Nina Fawcett.
We are in receipt of the paper. So please.
Hi, hello, testing. Thank you. My name is Kim Harris, 29 Landis Street, New Haven, Connecticut.
Hi, my name is Eli, 405 Monroe Street.
Okay, testing. Thank you for seeing us today. I have my kids here with me today because we literally had to kill ourselves to get here to make this today. Because the things that we do are so vitally important, and it's about the children. It's always about the children. And I'll just read a little bit because you have my testimony, my written testimony as well. Many thanks to this committee in the city of New Haven for the opportunity to present a youth-serving idea. Inspired Communities, Inc. is an organization that opens the door to community building opportunities. We've been working since 2018 on the premise that if we develop leaders and enrich children with concepts of community building, we will create a sustainable, beautiful living environment for the next generation. Those of us on the other side of 50 years of age understand where we are in the life cycle of New Haven. We also know that if we want change, we must work together towards the solution. Today, I want to talk about a solution for New Hallville and beyond. Here's a small piece of background that will enhance clarity for the need in New Hallville. We have to leave our community for most everything. We have to leave our community for food. We have to leave our community for jobs. We have to leave our community for doctor's appointments, restaurants, youth development, and the list goes on and on and on. Not having basic living needs has put New Hallville at the top of the ladder as a community that is impacted by the term called social determinants of health. They are non-medical factors that determine how we live. Not having food, not having a place to live, a decent place to live, jobs and work, transportation, social services, and more. Today, I want to talk about community service, youth community services for our children. I want to talk about having places and spaces that will impact them, places and spaces that will make a difference in how they live, places and spaces that say, hey, in a decade, guess what? These kids right here can intentionally deactivate social determinants of health. And we want to do it through community service programs. No, we do not have a community service, so to say, emphasis in New Hallville. But we have places where we can make youth development, community services places happen. What I present to you not a comprehensive, it's the first draft of many in terms of what we would like to do. We'd like to create spaces. We've identified 6 spaces in New Hallville that 10 kids per space can go to, or we can look at it like this. If we run this program for 24 weeks, not only 10 kids per space, but how about maybe 180 kids per 24-week cycle, getting touched by social determinants of health, cooking, sewing, all the things that are embedded in having a community, a youth serving community service program. in this piece right here, we talk about staffing, we talk about enrichment educators, we talk about experts, we talk about the future, and we even give you some data on what's happening in New Hallville so that you can have a little taste on those margins. And in closing, what I would say is, Inspire Communities Inc. and the community of New Hallville hopes the city of New Haven will commit to supporting and investing in this much needed program for our children. By supporting this program, you will make a difference in how the residents of New Hallville live. And I'll take any questions at this time if you have any for us.
No, we don't at this time, but we thank you for your testimony. We also already received the documents that you emailed us earlier today, so we will definitely review that and include those documents in the public records.
We thank you very much.
Thank you, and have a good evening.
You too.
Ms. Fawcett. Ms. Fawcett, Clara Stanley.
Good evening. I'm Fawcett, 420 Huntington Street. I'm here to put the explanation point to what you just heard. The one thing I like is we have a community that doesn't have a community center. So there's no place for kids to go except on the street. And if they have nothing to do, you know what happens. And I'd like you to think about that when you make decisions about what you're going to do with some of the funds. Because this woman, Kim Harris, has been working for many, many, many years with kids and knows how to do it and knows how to put it together. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Stanley. Ms. Stanley, Abby Philman.
As Ms. Stanley gets herself settled, I just want to recognize that there are many city staff who are here this evening. The Director and Deputy Director of Economic Development Administration, the Mayor's Chief of Staff, the Acting Comptroller, Community Service Administrator, Director of Youth Services, Liaison to the Board of Alders, the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, and the City Engineer. We thank them for their presence as well. Also, I believe there might still be one sheet left over there at the table. There's the one on it. Yeah, we've got it. Okay. So when we're done with the second sheet, we'll allow people to raise their hands if they wish to testify after that. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Tyra Stanley. I live on Anthony Street.
Have it upside down.
Oh, there
you go. That's it.
That'll make a difference.
That'll make a difference.
My name is Tyra Stanley. I work at New Haven Works and I live at 28 Anthony Street in New Haven, Connecticut. Thank you so much for hosting this meeting, this public hearing, and for your commitment in addressing residents' most pressing concerns. I'm here to testify in support of the current proposed allocation for the funds, specifically the 10 million for vocational training.
If you could just have it a little bit closer to your mouth, please.
As the construction program coordinator with New Haven Works and Job Coach, I have seen the difference vocational training can make in our residents' lives. About 2/3 of our residents who have joined our program since 2013 joined with only a high school diploma. I've worked with a lot of these residents. Some come straight out of high school, others earned a high school diploma or a GED years ago and are struggling to make ends meet. While stringing together several low-paying jobs, and they don't have any benefits. Others are returning citizens with little to no work experience outside of the correction system. For these New Haven Works members, access to vocational training combined with a pathway to a job afterward is life-changing. Vocational training can come in many forms: pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeship programs, on-the-job training programs, temporary jobs with clear and explicit pathways into good paying permanent jobs with benefits, certificate programs that have employer buy-in and that feed existing and growing job sectors. Even with vocational training, we have to make sure that there are resources that can help the member. We call them wraparound services. These supports help residents navigate a changing market, one made more daunting by the lack of experience. So I want to give you an experience from one of our members. One of our members came to me, he had no work experience, and he was in his late 30s, none to speak of on the record. He went through what we have as a collaboration between the workforce development, the city of New Haven and New Haven Works. He is now working, after completing one of our pilot programs, he's now working as a union carpenter because he had little to no experience, but the pilot that we ran opened that door to him. And there's many other examples I can give you like that. So construction training or training programs are very important and they need resources. And that's what I want to say.
Questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Abby Feldman. After Ms. Feldman, John Lee.
Hi, good evening. My name is Abby Feldman. I live at 33 Exchange Street. I'm the lead organizer of New Haven Rising. And we have engaged thousands of community members in conversations about their priorities and thoughts regarding the American Rescue Plan funds. We understand the importance of this revenue and what it took to win these opportunities for New Haven. I, like many others from New Haven Rising, led a canvassing team in Philadelphia during the presidential election, and then led a team in Georgia during the runoff senatorial election. These campaigns required months of door knocking, 6 days per week during the pandemic. It meant living out of hotel rooms and missing holiday celebrations with our families. I was one of the primary caregivers for my grandmother, and I had to ask other family members to step in while I was out fighting to beat Trump back and take back the Senate. Although we had to travel far away from New Haven, I always saw this fight as one for my city. Now we have a once-in-a-generation source of funding to ensure real progress for New Haven and its low-income neighborhoods. Beginning in the fall of last year, we started surveying residents across the city, and we have surveyed over 1,000 residents so far. We held many neighborhood and community meetings to discuss the ARP funding. Many of our members also participated in the previous public hearing with testimonies from their experience. The top 3 priorities that emerged from our survey are jobs, affordable housing, and youth opportunities. These priorities surfaced in many of our conversations and meetings as well. Good jobs give people a chance to make ends meet, and childcare and housing are 2 of the largest expenses for most New Haven families. Right now, there are many renters who are struggling to stay in their homes, while others are struggling to find a home to buy or rent. Good jobs, stable housing, and youth opportunities are powerful ways to decrease the violence in our community. We hope that the board will increase funding for these priorities so that families across New Haven have more opportunities and stability. We support rental assistance and down payment assistance programs. We need programs that increase the stock of affordable housing. We need more residents to have access to youth programs like summer camps and youth centers. Early childcare is still not accessible for many of our residents. Finally, New Haven Rising has also long campaigned to change the maps of segregated development in our city. Our low-income neighborhoods have been cut out of opportunities for decades, and the ARP revenue should be a way to address that history. The city should prioritize low-income neighborhoods and low-income households in spending this money. We hope that the board can provide guidance to ensure this priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you so much.
John Lee. After Mr. Lee, Lee Al-Sawabi.
My name is John Lee, and I live at 699 Elm Street. I'm here to speak on the need to prioritize youth opportunities in the allocation of our city's ARP funding. Since I graduated from Yale in 2018, young people from LEAP, Citywide Youth Coalition, Sunrise Movement, and beyond have welcomed me into their families and homes in ways that have surprised and moved me daily. Young people in New Haven are why I'm here today. For the past 3 years, I've been the site coordinator of Leaps, Dixwell, and New Mobile sites. This summer, we were able to hold our 2-week counselor training at the new Q House. 156 New Haven high school and college students used that space to gather, play, build bonds, and plan out the safe, joyful learning communities we are now creating for our 6 to 12-year-olds this summer. We need more spaces like the Q House across our city. Youth community centers will create more opportunities for employment and learning. Imagine in New Haven the Q House in every neighborhood. In fact, this is exactly what many families across our city called for when New Haven Rising surveyed over 1,000 residents and identified youth opportunities as one of the top 3 priorities for residents, along with housing and jobs. A Q House in every neighborhood would create more opportunities for employment, allow for more neighborhood-grounded approaches to addressing needs, and cultivate the youth leadership we need in every aspect of society. Another need I see every day is childcare and affordable or free summer programming for children. A week into our LEAP summer, I'm still hourly receiving email applications for our LEAP sites in New Hallville, Dixwell, Dwight Edgewood, The Hill, Fairhaven, and Quinnipiac Meadows. All 7 LEAP sites are now over-enrolled past 100 children. And while my fellow site coordinators and I want to enroll more children, we also want to make sure that one-on-one tutoring and group learning can still happen in classrooms. I believe some of the proposed programs, like the outdoor ranger program, could develop a sense of stewardship among our youth, as well as a desire to better know and care for our city's diverse neighborhoods. The proposed youth summit could be a space for groups already growing youth leadership in New Haven to gather and become more engaged in our local democratic processes, including public hearings like tonight's. I urge the board to fully support increased funding of youth opportunities. Our youth deserve more resources, safe neighborhoods, and real opportunities to lead their communities. And finally, it feels wrong not to mention the truth that many of these questions around where to spend, allocate, prioritize this ARP funding to maximize health and resilience and healing for our families and communities actually shouldn't exist. We need accountability from our city's biggest employer and wealthiest institution. Last fall, we won a historic increase in Yale's voluntary contribution to New Haven, but we still need Yale to pay its fair share. Thank you.
Question from committee members? Saying none. Thank you, Mr. Hood.
Thank you. Mr. Zawabi. Mr. Zawabi, Jade Ogden, Howard.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Annabelle Hernandez. I live at 699 Elm Street. I've lived in New Haven since August of 2016 when my family and I arrived in the US from Syria. Around this time last year, the owners of the house we were renting in East Rock for $2,200 a month wanted to raise the rent even more. We started looking for a new house around the city, but we couldn't find anything affordable and decent. The challenge is that the houses we were considering were either nice but ridiculously expensive or affordable but in terrible condition. We looked for about 2 months. This was all while the lease has ended, so the owner were harassing us every day about emptying the house. We had construction workers coming to the house sometimes as early as 7 a.m. It was a living hell because we had a 5-year-old and the 8-year-old who were waking up every day to the sound of banging and hammering. Sometimes the person gets to a breaking point where nothing else matters except their family. And my family had reached that point. We wanted to be out of the house at any cost, so we started looking for houses outside of New Haven, even though our whole life is here in New Haven. At the end of June last year, we found a house in Nagasaki. There was no other choice. The price of not finding an affordable housing in New Haven is that now instead of a 7-minute drive to my dad's work, it's a 35-minute drive. For me, I was entering my senior year at Hill House. When we moved, so I also had to move to New Haven by myself to avoid transferring to a new school in my last year of high school. So the takeaway from my story is that it's becoming impossible for working people to find a place to live in New Haven, even when we try to find a place. The AR creating money can make a difference, an important difference in helping families that are going through what my family went through. The Iron Home Initiative will provide easier ways to find affordable units. It will also assist with security deposit and grants. The land bank will provide a way to create more affordable units in our city, and down payment assistance will also help families stay in New Haven over the long term. I urge the board to fully support these and other affordable housing programs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Questions from committee members? Seeing none. Have a good evening, sir.
Jade Ogden Howard, after Ms. Howard. Dana.
Dina Terrell.
Terrell, Dina Terrell.
Hi. Thank you.
Don't press the button.
Hi, my name is Jade Ogden Howard, and I live at 27 Elliott Street. I'm excited to be here with the Board of Elders tonight. I would like for the Board of Elders to invest more in youth opportunities. The American Rescue Plan is an opportunity to support summer youth programs and provide youth jobs, and also to prepare youth like me for job opportunities. We also need community centers for youth. These programs will help youth learn important skills, become community leaders, and prepare for life after high school graduation. I hope my stories can show why these programs are important. I live on the hill. I am the oldest child of my family of 7. I just graduated from Hill House, and my mother is the Democratic co-chair of Ward 3. Supporting my neighborhood is important for me and our family. Before high school, I participated in youth programs like LEAP and Southern Youth. Southern Youth pushed me to think about myself and become a community leader. In high school, I was the captain of our math club, and I brought us to states twice. And I was also in the junior OTC program. In the community, I have organized neighborhood cleanups with Elder Ron Hurt, and now I'm working with New Haven Rising to help kids, the youth, get more better jobs. I want to be an example for my siblings and also an example for my community. I want to make a better life for us here in New Haven, since I am a part of New Haven. I grew up in New Haven and my family is from New Haven. Now that I have graduated, I would like to get training in the medical field. I also just applied to New Haven Works myself. There's a lot of good opportunities in the medical field in New Haven, but we need access to these jobs to get training for these jobs. Employers should be providing these for us either way, but with y'all help, they definitely will be able to give us more programs and opportunities for our training.
1 minute.
Okay. These programs will also help youth stay out of the streets and stay out of incarceration and this unfair justice system for us. The American Rescue Plan can be an important part of changing the city to help youth like me. Youth programs have helped me be successful in high school and support my communities. Job programs are now helping me with my next steps of building my life in New Haven, and for me to be an example for my brothers and myself. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Questions from committee members? Thank you for your testimony and best wishes.
Deanna Terrell. After Ms. Terrell.
Ms. Seba Shaka.
Sheba Shaka.
Okay.
So can you repeat the name?
Dina Terrell, is that you? You can correct our pronunciation.
It's okay.
But please hold that close to your mouth so everybody can hear.
Oh, turn it around. Right there.
The members of the finance committee. My name is Dina. I'm the member of the Sister of Diaspora. I'm from Iraq. I came to the United States in 2014 with my family.
Closer.
The first 2 years later, in the USA, we didn't know that housing was a right, not just for citizens, but also for refugees and immigrants, families in New Haven. New Haven is facing a humanitarian crisis. A lot of people are living homeless on the streets, and thousands cannot pay rent. We need a solution to the housing crisis. My family applied for Section 8 in 2015. Since then, no one has contacted us regarding, our application. I called them, I emailed, I went to their office, and no one had an answer. They have told us to be patient and wait for the interview. We have been waiting since 2015, almost 7 years now. Every time I ask them, when are we going to be interviewed? Their answer was, we don't know. Who knows that? The process of the housing application to the minimums. My family wasn't able to pay high rent, so Section 8 housing was the only option for us. If we wanted to move to a safe place, if we want it was impossible because we can't afford it. Even though my mom and I worked, it wasn't enough. I can't express my feelings toward this issue. Waiting for years made me really angry. I even spoke to the director of housing, and she told me, director of housing, and she told me we cannot do anything about it. Just because we don't have enough units. So where is there to go next? Housing is a right as a human, and I need my rights. Why can't we have affordable housing? It's necessary to get our rights for reasons including security, safety, and economic standard for living. We're here to make sure our voice is heard. We're here to make a change. We're here to demand our rights. We're here to get a solution, and we're here to ask whoever is taking charge of housing to listen to us. We are here to make. We are not here to make troubles. We are here to ask for our rights. Thank you very much.
Questions from committee members? No questions. No. Thank you so much. Ms. Seba Shata?
You might want to mess up on that name.
So you let me do it?
Yes.
See? You have to hold that close up too.
Hello, Ms. Seltzer. I live temporary at 28 at local Third, 234. And I'm here today because I'm part of the sister of diaspora, and I'm a full-time employee at Heavenly as a fellowship director, and at the same time I'm a single mother. So for since January of this year, I've been struggling to find an apartment. I lived temporarily with a friend since that time. I applied many times, and every time I got rejected because to find a 2-bedroom apartment for 4 of us, it could be 1,500, which are way higher than 30% of my monthly income. So it is not just my problem. Everyone in our community, when I talk to them, they are stuck in a terrible situation with mice, cockroaches, leak or safety issues, and they can't get out because once they get out, they're gonna be in the streets. So right now, I'm being thankful that I have someone to stay with, but I'm homeless. So I'm here today just to ask if we can, this money can be in subsidized housing, or even temporary solution for people in our situation. So that's gonna help us like that, rather than struggling every morning to find an apartment. And I urge you if you can just pass our proposal so we can help us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from committee members? Thank you very much, and best wishes to you.
Norman Clemente. And after Norman, Annabelle Hernandez. Oh, yeah. I don't know. No.
Yeah, my name is Norman Clement, and I live at 21 Stanley Street. I want to say that just because I'm wearing a shirt today, I'm not representing this, which is downtown kitchen where I work. Although I have some personal stories about what happened in the situation. I just want to start off by saying that I have personally experienced the impact of what happens with all these new apartment buildings going up around the city. I was a resident of East Rock neighborhood for 12 years, and after the Corsair building, apartment building went up, I could no longer wait to live in that neighborhood. So I had to move to Edgewood, where I reside now. And I see that's going to happen. That's going to have the effect on everyone in the city, because although I don't get around to all different parts of the city on a weekly basis, I have been noticing that wherever I go, there are new apartments going up, whether it's the Hill, New Hallville, Edgewood even. So in the future, people are going to be affected by that. And where are they going to go? Right now, I work at the drop-in center on State Street. We have a daily guest list of about 60 people that come in for food, shelter, and to get out of the elements for a little bit. That increases over the winter. It will increase, and it continues to increase. And what I'm seeing there is more and more elderly people coming in, people over 65 that do not have housing.
1 minute.
The trauma that I experience every day from these folks is just like heartbreaking. Can you imagine being 65 years old and not having a place to live and no shelter? The best that we can do for them is to give them a tent. All right. And we've been doing that more and more. So when we talk about affordable housing, it's a relative term as to who can afford housing, correct? So I see some of it, and housing is a healthcare issue, and healthcare is a right. So in order to get ahead of this, we need to put as much money as possible into affordable, safe housing for our citizens. This is a crisis that is nationwide, and this and climate change are the two most important things we can do right now. Thank you.
Questions from committee members? Questions?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Annabelle, not Commissioner. Ms. Hernandez, Miller, Chavez.
No. Hola, mi nombre es Annabelle Hernandez. Hola, mi nombre es Annabelle Hernandez, de México. Tengo 4 hijos, vivo en Meridian. He vivido en Estados Unidos por 17 años.
Hello, my name is Annabelle Hernandez. I'm from Mexico and I have 4 children. I've lived in the US for 17 years.
Todo este tiempo ha sido difícil, mi situación por ser inmigrante, y asimismo es para muchas familias. He trabajado duro para sacar a mis hijos adelante y con mucho esfuerzo lo sigo logrando.
All this time has been very difficult for me because of being an immigrant, as it is for many other immigrant families. I've worked really hard to push my family forward and my children forward, and with a lot of effort, we're making it.
Pero es una lástima y una tristeza que la mayoría de nuestros ingresos es destinado
a pagar la vivienda y todos los pagos que tenemos que hacer mensuales.
But it's sad and it's a shame that most of our income every month has to be used to pay rent and our monthly bills.
Ahora soy madre soltera, pero hace años, cuando aún vivía con el papá de mis hijos, nos desalojaron 2 veces por no tener dinero para pagar la renta.
I'm a single mother now, but years ago when I was still living with the father of my children, we were evicted twice for not having enough money to pay the rent.
Llegó un Marshall a las 8 de la mañana y sacó todo a la calle. Yo cargué solo a mis hijos y nos fuimos a vivir por un tiempo con un familiar.
A marshal arrived and took everything out on the street. I carried my children alone, took them with me, and we went to live for a while with a relative.
Otra ocasión, en pleno invierno, nos dijeron, tienen una semana para dejar el apartamento, y no tuve otra opción, y me mudé a Georgia con mis padres por 2 años, y después regresé a Connecticut.
In another instance, in the middle of winter, they told us that we had 1 week to leave the apartment, and I had no other choice but to move. I moved to Georgia with my parents for 2 years before returning to Connecticut.
Después nos atacó la pandemia del COVID y toda la economía se puso más difícil.
Then the pandemic hit us, and the economy became so much more difficult.
Ahora vivo en un apartamento pequeño en Mérida con mis hijos y tengo la necesidad de mudarme a New Haven porque aquí tengo mi trabajo, mudarme para que mis hijos estén cómodos, pero la economía no lo permite.
Right now I'm living in a small apartment with my children in Meriden. I need to move to New Haven. I have the need to move to New Haven because that's where I work and that's where my children will feel more comfortable, but economically this is not an option for me.
En este momento estoy estudiando y trabajando en Berkeley con muchas mujeres luchadoras con sueños excelentes. También pertenezco al colectivo Semilla, un grupo donde he aprendido muchos conceptos importantes de unidad y lucha.
At this moment in my life, I'm studying and working at Havenly with many women who are amazing fighters with excellent dreams. I'm also a member of Semilla Collective, a group where I've learned many important concepts of unity and struggle, and where we're supporting our sisters in diaspora.
Estamos apoyando a nuestras hermanas en la diáspora porque para mí y muchas familias es importante que la alcaldía destine un porcentaje de esos muchos millones de dólares a la vivienda.
We're supporting the sisters in diaspora because for me and my family, it is very important that the city portions a significant percentage of the Arpa funding to housing.
Somos inquilinos trabajadores y merecemos vivir mejor con nuestros hijos, pero el sueldo no lo permite.
We are tenants and we are workers and we deserve better lives for ourselves and our children, but our salaries don't allow it.
Tener una vivienda asequible y de calidad sería un sueño muy grande para muchas familias y para mí sería muy cómodo tener un cuarto para cada niño, una sala, todo sería más fácil.
Having an affordable and quality home would be a huge dream for me and my children. For me, it would be great to have a room for each child and a living room. Everything would be easier.
Entonces la alcaldía estaría haciendo un sueño humano hecho realidad.
Then the mayor's office, the city would be making a human dream come true.
Piensen con empatía y humanidad. La vivienda digna es nuestro derecho. Muchas gracias.
Please think with empathy and humanity. Housing is a human right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions from anyone?
Ms. Chavez?
Yes, thank you. My name is Camila Luisa Chavez. I'm a tenant at 177 Chestnut Street in New Haven. I'm a member of the Sisters in Diaspora, and I'm a co-director of Havenly, an organization that works with immigrant and refugee women in Haven. I just want to say in front of you all today that you've heard us, you've seen us come time and time again in the last 6 months since January when we first submitted these proposals, talking about how fundamental of an issue housing is in our lives, and bringing with us statistics and numbers that are undeniable about the extent and the profoundness of the housing crisis that we're facing in New Haven. And we've told you in our lived experiences, and so this is a reality that we're living in. And so I just want to ask you as our elected officials to, my understanding is that this is the last hearing before you all vote as a committee to send the mayor's proposal for the allocation of ARP money to the Board of Alders. And so in this meeting, I just want to ask you to think about your role as elected officials in helping us as a community to confront public health crises, which we are currently living in. And so, you know, almost zooming out of this, I urge you to pass our proposals and portion 62.5 million of American Rescue Plan funding to create safe and dignified affordable housing. And beyond that, I urge you to work with us, to look us in the eyes, look in the eyes of every person who's coming here and telling you that one of those fundamental basic needs of the human life, which is shelter, is so out of reach for so many people, and work with us to come to solve that. Work with us. We have a detailed plan, and we would be more than happy to have conversations with each of you as individuals, with you as a committee, to find a solution together. And we believe that your role as our alders and our neighbors and our community members is to push our city when they are not proposing a comprehensive solution to this issue. We urge you to stand with us, because as you can see, each time we come with more people. Each time we come, there's more and more people who are here testifying with us on this issue. And each time we come with feeling more strong in calling this a political failure. It's not a natural phenomenon to have such a housing crisis. It's not a natural phenomenon. It requires choices, and it will require brave decisions to get us out of this. So we ask you to stand with us and for the long term, because this is an issue that will require long-term action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Javier Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez, Andrea Sanchez.
Good afternoon, members of the committee, members of the community. My name is Javier Gonzalez. I live in Maple Street 123. I'm from Mexico. My dad is from Puerto Rico. I've been living in New Haven for almost 7 years now. And me personally, I could tell you many stories on how the prices of housing in New Haven have pushed my family to situations in which we felt that we had to choose between paying for gas on winter or the rent of that month. And obviously we needed to stay under a roof, and we went for the rent, and we went through a couple of rough winters. I could tell you that this is not a situation unique to myself or my family, but it is a situation that many people in America are going through right now. We have a housing crisis in our hands. It's a reality that we need to accept, and we have a very unique opportunity with this American Rescue Plan money that lots of the times when the housing issue comes to our hands, the response from our elected officials is that there is no funds, there is nowhere to go around. But in this instance, with 100 million coming from the federal government, I personally feel like there is a real chance to make a change for our people here in New Haven, and it is truly in our hands to make that decision and make that call. And as my friend just said, we are asking you today to stand with us in the long-term fight that is fighting this housing crisis. Because it will require lots of work from the community, from community members, but also from our elected officials to come to a place in which we don't have 400 people living on the streets. of New Haven. So today I stand in solidarity with the proposal of the Sisters in the Diaspora to spend 62.5 million of the American Rescue Plan funds on housing, and I urge you to join us in this effort because I know that you guys also know that this is an issue that concerns us all. Thank you. Javier Gonzalez.
Questions from committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. Thank you.
Andrea Sanchez, and after Ms. Sanchez, Camille Christie.
My name is Andrea Sanchez, and I live at 1 Maple Street. So when you can't afford a realtor, places like Zillow and Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist are places that you go to look for housing. But when you work, you know, a full-time job and a part-time job, it's very difficult to keep up with those posts and those leads. So, so finding housing, viable housing for working class populations is very, very scarce.
30%.
You know, adequate housing. So for me personally, if I had the choice, I would move from my current place of residence. Property management, awful to deal with, you know, there's biohazards and safety issues, structural and plumbing issues that haven't been addressed 2 years after I moved in. So if I had the choice, I would move closer to work, where it's less expensive, safer to live at, et cetera, right? My situation isn't dire, right? Because I'm fortunate enough to have housing and fortunate enough to have employment, but that's not the case for a lot of my neighbors in New Haven. And, you know, it's just not affordable. I'm an employment specialist for our immigrant neighbors in New Haven. And I've seen firsthand the detrimental effects that unaffordable housing has on our community. And so, you know, this is all from firsthand experience. I don't necessarily, my organization doesn't necessarily share the same viewpoint. It's just my firsthand experience. So once their cases are approved, my clients are found housing upon their arrival, and they're expected to find a job and be fully financially independent by the 90-day mark, which isn't very long, right? 3 months goes by very fast. So many of my recent clients are Afghan evacuees, and although they've been enrolling in English and doing everything they can, their arrival was abrupt and unexpected.
1 minute.
It will take them a long time to learn English and be able to assimilate, right? This makes finding employment very difficult. So that leads to people not being able to find jobs in time, falling behind on rent and utilities, and facing eviction before they even have a chance to resettle. And learn a new way of life. So they leave a traumatic place, just fall back into the same cycle of poverty. The 10 to 14 million isn't enough for this rapidly changing demographic that New Haven is facing, not only for my clients, but for everybody else in the community. So I would ask that you guys please increase funding for the room. Way more, because we deserve it.
Questions from committee members? Seeing none. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Camille.
Hello, good evening.
Please use the microphone. Hold it close to you. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Camille Kritzman. I'm a case manager here in New Haven. The population that I serve is a population that is excluded from many forms of relief or aid. Migrant residents of New Haven. I would classify all of my clients as housing insecure. I've seen clients get evicted, live in unsafe and unstable conditions because they had no choice, and seen their rent double while their wages stayed the same. I've waited on hold with clients that call 211 in hopes that they can find a shelter nearby with space for them and their children. And the reality is there usually isn't, because we are in a housing crisis. And many of my clients have still not recovered from the economic disaster that the pandemic was for the immigrant community. My clients lost their jobs, got no benefits, and owed full rent and utilities. Some of my clients' landlords were seeking to evict clients for missed payments from that time as soon as they could. And now rent has also increased citywide. I look for housing every single day, and I can say with confidence that there's no affordable and or accessible housing in New Haven. Entire communities will be displaced if this is not properly addressed. And with the American Rescue Plan, we now have the chance to avoid this. So I stand in support of the Sisters of the Diaspora's proposal to use $62.5 million of the American Rescue Plan to go to affordable housing in New Haven. I believe that addressing the housing crisis and instability many New Haven families have comes first. And I implore you all as alders and elected officials to remember your undocumented and migrant constituents. Please include New Haven residents without social security numbers in this aid so they may also have a place to live. Thank you.
Questions from community members? No question, none. Thank you so much. That brings us to the conclusion of the 3-page list of folks who signed up to testify. You will have one last opportunity in just a moment, but let me just note for the record that we did receive a number of testimonies electronically before the meeting from a Ryan daughter at 54 Diamond Street, who was talking about the climate change proposal in the mayor's proposed allocation. As you already heard, we received many pages of documents from Paris and the Inspired Communities Incorporated about their proposal. Dina from Sisters in the Diaspora, who spoke this evening, also sent us the document. And Harper, who lives in East Rock, sent us written testimony about in support of affordable housing allocation. Kimberly Hart sent us testimony in support. She lives on across the boulevard. She sent a testimony in support of the Sisters of Diaspora's proposal. There was an anonymous testimony in favor of the Room for All Coalition and the Sisters in Diaspora proposal. Cindy Miller, also in support of the Room for All and Sisters of Diaspora collective proposal. KG Geegan, also in support of allocations for affordable housing. And Anna Arpa, also in favor of allocations in support of affordable housing. So those have already been received and printed out by community members and will be entered into the record in addition to the testimonies that are given this evening. Does any member of the public wish to give further testimony on this topic? I see a hand raised. Is that you? Please come forward. And while this individual is coming forward, I want to recognize our colleague called Wingate 429 District. You're going to have to take that microphone and put it right next to your mouth so everybody can.
Hello, my name is King and I live at 126 Sheffield. I testified in April about the conversation I have had with over a dozen New Haven residents while surveying them about how the city is best to use the ARPA funds. This result in the survey was clear. People need jobs, training, and education, and affordable housing. I think that's where the money is needed most. We shouldn't leave anyone behind in our community. The number of people that are dealing with trauma and mental health is too high. The number of people experiencing homelessness is too high, and we need help. There is a poverty in the city, and the groceries are high, and the housing is going up. And I want to see people be able to make ends meet. I want people to reap the benefits of their blood, sweat, and tears. Fathers and mothers should be able to feed their children. They should also feel that their children are safe in their homes and in their neighborhoods. I'm tired of moving and uprooting my family. I have lived this. I do not want to stand by anymore. When people have all their money towards rents and lights and they can't afford other basics and may starve. I've been through all of this and many challenges from finding housing to affordable living. I wasn't easy to bounce back emotionally, but my family has been torn apart and these challenges are unfair. I should not have to live but a constant reminder of my past of incarceration when I'm looking for opportunity now to live. I want to see children have a standard living in the community. Young adults need vocational and training education and to build up their future instead of worrying about where their next meal should come from and worrying about whether they have to move again or challenge the gifts of the skills of their career. Was that their jobs and union jobs? Yes.
1 minute.
Okay, and affordable housing, and this will be a better life. And in our community, there should be opportunities for a better future, and I want to see this life vibrant. And these APR funds are giving us the opportunity to provide for our children to have a better future with affordable housing. And the funds, and these funds are in the right direction, and I encourage the board to provide more support and affordable housing as possible. Appreciate you.
1 minute before you leave. Questions from committee members? Seeing none. Are you able to provide that to our staff? Thank you so much. Excuse me. Any other members of the public wishing to testify? Please come forward. So our staff person is right here with Suit, who's raising his hand. Thank you so much. And yourself, ma'am. Your name and address for the record.
Good evening, voices of the city, the residents of the city of New Haven. My name is Melissa Chambers. Reluctantly, I am currently a resident of the city of Maryland, where I purchased my 2-family home. However, wasn't born and raised that way. The city of New Haven is where I still call home since the days of being a little girl playing on the streets of Sylvan, Vernon, Ward, Elliott, and down to Evergreen Cemetery in the Hill. I say reluctantly due to the feelings of being forced out of the very city I love. I started my home buying journey back in 2015, starting with 2 unsuccessful applications to the Happy Path Community Program. I continued my journey the old-fashioned way by enlisting a realtor. I only looked in New Haven. Why? Because of love of my city. And I wanted to take part of the city's first-time home buyer down payment assistance program. Speaking of that program, I am curious to hear the numbers that have been granted to families within the past 5 years. My assumption would be the numbers are low or even non-existent. For years, I couldn't find a property that was suitable for my family, and along the journey, I learned of 2 mega slumlords that has seemingly took over the city by buying a large percentage of properties. I started questioning city officials of how can they even allow these big companies to come into our city and buy all of these homes, leaving its residents high and dry of overpriced properties, distressed homes, and the mere lack of choices. My realtor said to me plainly, we're gonna have to start looking outside and surrounding cities. Upset and disappointed, I did just that. I kicked and screamed the whole time because I wanted to purchase a home in my city, where I went to school, where I made lifelong friends, and where my parents owned their home on Sylvan Avenue.
1 minute.
Speaking of my parents, they were lucky enough to purchase at the time. They didn't have to contend with mega property owners. However, today, they're contending with Yale's tax break they receive annually. In conclusion, thank you for the current proposal for allocating ARPA funds to affordable housing, but there is still work to do. There is still not enough affordable homes in the Haven. There is still not enough to purchase homes. And I can think of about 10 of my friends who I know who have moved to surrounding cities due to the housing market here in New Haven, practically forced out. I urge the board to provide as much money to Home Initiative and the Land Bank program to keep its loyal and faithful citizens.
Any questions for Ms. Chambers?
No questions.
Seeing none. Thank you so much. Are there other members of the public who wish to testify on this topic? Thank you, Ms. Chambers. If you can provide a paper copy or an electronic copy, we would be grateful. And that goes to anybody who's testified this evening who didn't have the ability to give it to us this evening. We were always grateful for electronic and paper copies of the testimonies. And you're going to address the record, which you can just decide here. There you go.
Hello, my.
Try the other one. Just don't push the button.
Hello.
There you go.
Hi, my name is Lisa. I'm 117 Chestnut Street. I wanted to testify in support of affordable housing, and in support of the plan of the sisters in diaspora of Italy. And yeah, I wanted to speak from my experience, having formerly worked at the drop-in center. I'm not speaking for them, for the organization, I'm just speaking for my experience there. The drop-in center, to the kitchen, to the drop-in center to on the street, as well as working with sex workers and allies network. So basically, like having one with unhoused people, you just see that like not having housing is the root of the issue. Basically, like everything else comes from there, and there's so many organizations in the city that basically like work around that issue, that work like for jobs or like shelters or something related to it, but it's not really addressing the root cause of the issue. Because if you don't have housing, it's really hard to like get a job, for example, because if you don't have a place to stay, you don't have a place to keep your clothes, then how are you supposed to have like clean clothes to go to your job, for example, or like any sort of stability to like show up on time. Anything related to that, it's just like everything comes from having literally just a stable place to live and a safe place to exist, essentially. And it's just like, to me, it's just kind of wild to think that like if you don't have enough money, you deserve, like, if I was just saying like you don't deserve to live, like you don't deserve to exist in a safe place, like that concept to me is just like really unimaginable. So yeah, I just wanted to advocate for the need to really put housing first. And once we have like basically tried to resolve this problem, the huge housing crisis in our society, then I feel like we can like naturally then becomes like trying to like address these other issues. But it's just like to see that the ARP funding is going to so many other things that's not housing, just like doesn't seem like it's addressing the root cause of a lot of people's issues. So I just want to advocate for that, and that's it.
Questions from committee members? Seeing none. Thank you for your testimony. Any members of the public who wish to testify on this topic on these items? And for a second time, are there any members of the public who wish to testify on this topic on these items? And for a third time, are there members of the public who wish to testify on this topic on these items? Seeing none. Alder DeCola.
I move to close the public section.
Second. There's a motion to close the public portion of this meeting, to close the public hearing on these items. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion carries. Okay. Do you have a motion on item 2? Please.
I move item 2 for a read and file.
Second. There's a motion to recommend to the full board that it read and file item 2. Any discussion on the motion? I will just note for the record what this means, because the actual order that is legally formatted to authorize the city to do this allocation, that's item 1. Item 2 is an opinion, a strong, well-articulated opinion and proposal from the Sisters in Jasper Collective. It's not like a resolution that would actually authorize the city to do anything, but it's a perspective. And so we are considering that as we think about item 1. But the proper procedural step for item 2 is to fulfill the public hearing on it and to give it read and file. Any further discussion from committee members on the motion on item 2? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Item 2 will be recommended to be read and filed to the Board of Alders. As I mentioned at the very beginning of this meeting, the intention is to request, as the chair of the committee, I will be writing a letter to the president requesting that the full board discharge item 1 at its regular meeting on the 1st of August. And when an item is discharged, it's then acted upon that night. And so that meeting on August 1st is where the full board will have the item in front of it, where it will have deliberation, discussion, possible amendments, and then a vote. And so that is the process we're going to do. We got this request because there are certain projects that are going to be funded by this allocation, where the clock is ticking and they need the money sooner. In the summer, we only meet once a month, so if we don't vote on it in August, we will vote in September, which is after the point at which some of these products need to start. So that is what we will do. We want to certainly thank members of the public for their testimony tonight. Members of the public who came in April and testified on this item as well. Members of the public who came to the meeting in June to hear the city staff presentations. We thank the administration for this proposal. I just want to say to committee members that we are following up with the administration on questions that were brought up in our workshop back in June. So we want to make sure we get responses and answers to those questions as promptly as possible, so that we're well informed as we go into that vote on this policy. Over to Kelly.
I move to adjourn.
Second. There's a motion to adjourn. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to adjourn? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion passes. We are adjourned.
Mr. Chair. I had you covered.
You were ready to do the business. Okay.